Welcome back to another team selection video ahead of Gameweek 31 in FPL. I'll be discussing how I did in Gameweek 30 and also my transfer plans, as I have 2 free transfers available, and I'm going to use that to rectify some mistakes that I've made over the past few weeks. And I'll be discussing everything else that you need to know in terms of the injury news on Luke Shaw and Marcus Rashford and how that impacts my own transfer plans going into Gameweek 31 all the way until the end of the season. But if you end up enjoying this video, be sure to drop it a like. Let's try to get this to over 300, and we're also looking to push on towards 20,000 subscribers and beyond. Without further ado, let's jump straight into this video. Today's video is proudly sponsored by ExpressVPN. I use this service every day to watch films and shows from other countries. So living in the United Kingdom, I cannot watch The Godfather on Netflix, but with ExpressVPN, at the click of a button, I can now watch one of the greatest films ever made. I've never experienced any delays, no buffering whatsoever when surfing the internet, and you can actually access thousands of new shows and films using ExpressVPN and connecting to different servers, countries, and regions. ExpressVPN allows you to roam the internet securely. It masks your IP address and doesn't allow anyone to track your data, so you can have the best time while surfing the internet. I highly recommend you check it out, ExpressVPN. Using my link, you can get 3 months for free, so be sure to check out the link in the description below. Be sure to give ExpressVPN a go. I promise you won't regret it. Unfortunately, I can't say the same thing about my FPL team, where things just went wrong from the very get-go. But I did start the right goalkeeper, as Raya was on my bench. He scored an own goal and got 0 in total. So I gained 3 points from my decision in terms of who to start in the goalkeeper position. But things just didn't get any better in the other positions, especially when we look at the defense and all of that, as we'll get onto very soon. But still, I gained something from this decision at least, but I can't say that many more times throughout this segment of the video. Once I saw the Chelsea lineup and Chilwell was on the bench, I was just fearing the worst. And Chelsea don't look like they're going to keep many clean sheets from now until the end of the season. We discussed this in the deadline stream for Gameweek 30 because of the appointment of Frank Lampard switching to a back four. I don't think that spells good news for the likes of Chilwell, Kepa, and Reece James. Well, typically the best ways of covering Chelsea's defence, and I'm really happy and looking forward to trimming down this double up in Chelsea defensively. It hasn't really done me that well over the last few weeks, only in one game in Gameweek 29 against Liverpool, and I'm just looking forward to sell one of these players, as we'll get onto in the team selection portion of this video. But Chilwell came on, got a yellow card, did nothing. The same goes for Botman, who got a yellow card conceding a penalty against Brentford. And Newcastle probably should have conceded more in the first half, but once they got into half-time, they managed to recuperate a little bit, and they just turned it on in the second half and battered Brentford in that period. But Botman was still disappointing, and even for the best defender in FPL so far this season, Kieran Trippier was also disappointing. No returns from any of my defenders or goalkeeper whatsoever. Kepa was my highest scoring with 3 points, which says a lot. And even those on my bench like Ben Mee and also Luke Shaw. Obviously, Luke Shaw missed out due to injury, whilst Man United kept a clean sheet. So that was even more frustrating. And then you look at Ben Mee also getting a 1-pointer. So things didn't look great across my whole defensive line. And I think I need to reinforce that position heading into Gameweek 31. Never back the early kickoff, says Gandhi, and Marcus Rashford was captained by a lot of us. He missed 4 big chances, ended up coming off injured, and we obviously have an update here from Ten Hag, which will play a big part into our plans heading into Gameweek 31, 32, and 33. But at least he got an assist and salvaged something with the clean sheet point, 6 overall. It's not the worst captaincy score, but it could have been something else entirely. And he really had all the minerals and all the circumstances to outscore Erling Haaland quite significantly, but it didn't come to pass, and Marcus Rashford ended up being a very frustrating captaincy pick. And honestly, from now on, I think whenever I see someone who has an early kickoff, that might just be enough to put me off from captaining them in the future. But it's not the worst captain I've had all season. It's not the worst I've had in, let's say, my FPL history. So I'm not going to complain about that too much. But Marcus Rashford definitely could have done much more. Then we look at the other Man United midfielder in Bruno Fernandes. I know there's going to be a clamour to sell him because he's playing a deeper role, but that's going to change now with Casemiro returning from suspension in Gameweek 31, and you've also got Eriksen back in the squad. If he starts as well alongside Casemiro, and you've got Bruno a little bit further forward, that's only going to spell good news for those that have held on to the Portuguese international. He could do extremely well now once more and more people sell him and it becomes a little bit more of a differential. He's still going to be owned by quite a few people in the game, especially active managers, but I'd be more confident now in terms of returns, and I'm just looking forward to how he does in Game Week 31. Then we look at the other two midfielders. Bukayo Saka picked up a yellow card, and he also was very frustrating against Liverpool. He was pretty quiet actually in that game. The same goes for Martin Odegaard. He had that one really good moment towards the end where he spawned the likes of Konate and created a chance, but there was no one there in the box to meet that cross. And Saka in general has been very disappointing since I've kept him. And also in Game Week 28, when I didn't captain him, I think it was, he was the one that delivered the most points. So Saka has been a bit of a thorn in my side in recent weeks, even when he's done well. So I'm hoping Saka can repay the faith, because that decision to sell Odegaard and keep Saka cost me 5 points on the bench boost in double Game Week 29 and many more in Game Week 30, because it prevented me from buying Haaland back in for free, and that was enough to delay that move for at least another week. So I don't want to think about exactly how many points that decision has cost me, but it has been quite fatal in the last week or so. And the final midfielder, another source of frustration, was Matoma. He scored a goal which was disallowed. He should have won a penalty, but it wasn't given due to shocking officiating. So on another day, Matoma could have been on for a double-digit return, or at least a goal or assist, and it didn't come to pass. So I think those that had Matoma and started him, very frustrating, especially seeing the likes of Solly March, who was on my bench, getting 7 points, 2 bonus, and an assist. But there you go. FPL can be like that sometimes. You can make a good decision and it doesn't pay off. Hopefully in Game Week 31, the tide turns in terms of luck. Things looked a bit better in terms of the forward line, as it typically has in recent weeks. Harry Kane scored towards the end of the game against Brighton, picked up 3 bonus points, and Harry Kane is kind of inevitable at this point. He's the second top scorer in the Premier League. If it wasn't for Erling Haaland, we'd all be talking about Harry Kane for player of the season, arguably, or at least, we'd be giving a bit more respect in terms of his season. He's been so consistent in terms of goals, but it's very easy to be overshadowed by Erling Haaland at this point. And the fact I didn't have him has cost me this week. And keeping Ivan Toney was yet another source of frustration, because he missed a penalty, which he's never done before in the Premier League or for Brentford. He ended up scoring a penalty later on, but that wasn't enough to salvage anything, kind of significant there. And he also had a goal disallowed before the penalty miss and also his eventual goal. So Ivan Toney, just like with Matoma, could have had a really big haul, and it would have been enough to possibly outscore Erling Haaland, but it wasn't meant to be. And it ended up costing me quite a lot of points and rank in terms of not going for Erling Haaland and buying him back in for Ivan Toney, which was the plan a few weeks ago. But I think those price rises and falls ultimately just made it impossible for me to do so without taking a hit. And I didn't think it was worth it. And to be honest, I don't regret that decision too much on the face of it, but it ended up being a mistake. And Erling Haaland punished those that didn't have him. And that's actually now 2 times that I haven't had Erling Haaland. He scored a brace in Game Week 1 against West Ham, and he scored another brace here away to Southampton. So just have Erling Haaland whenever he's fit and don't go against him. The final forward here, and one that also was a bit frustrating, you could say, for most of the game, was Ollie Watkins, but he scored towards the end of the match, took his shirt off and got a yellow card, but still a decent return from him nonetheless. He's been the most consistent forward in recent weeks, probably since December as well, and this front three in general is very good, but it's definitely missing Erling Haaland, and I'm going to rectify that mistake going into Game Week 31. But before I show you my transfer plans, let's talk about my rank and who I captained. All the gains I made in double Game Week 29 have proved futile. I went from around 55,000 to 86k, so it was an awful week, only 44 points, and apart from Ollie Watkins, Harry Kane, and you could even argue Marcus Rashford, everyone else pretty much blanked. Although Ivan Toney did score, it still was very frustrating to see him only score 4 points after the penalty miss and the disallowed goal. So it was just an awful week, one of the worst I've had since the World Cup. I'm looking to rectify the mistakes I've made heading into Game Week 31, and also hoping, like I said earlier, that luck is probably on my side this time round. But let's go into my 2 transfers that I'm going to propose for Game Week 31. Despite the injuries to Marcus Rashford and Luke Shaw, the plan is to keep both of them and probably just bench them, especially if Luke Shaw ends up also missing out. Despite scoring an own goal in Game Week 30, the plan is to keep David Raya and start him against Wolves away. So the same fixture where Kepa Arrizabalaga blanked, but with Chelsea facing Brighton at home, I would give Brentford the edge in terms of clean sheet probabilities and also of Raya outscoring Kepa Arrizabalaga. So this could backfire, and it is a difficult decision. There's not much to separate them, but I would give Raya the edge simply because of the quality of opposition, and I still think Brentford are a better team than Chelsea at this moment in time. Let me know down in the comment section below who you are going for. But the plan right now is to start David Raya and bench Kepa Arrizabalaga. Ever since Luke Shaw got injured against Brentford, the plan was to keep him, and the same will be said here, especially after Ten Hag's comments, which were pretty optimistic. He is going to miss out against Sevilla in the Europa League, that is already confirmed, but Ten Hag stated that he expects Luke Shaw to be back on short notice, even though the likes of Garnacho, for example, will be probably out for a longer time period. And the same goes for Marcus Rashford, which is also another big point of discussion. But I think Luke Shaw has a chance of featuring in Game Week 31, and if not, he should be back in time for Game Week 33. Remember, he does blank in Game Week 32 anyway, and I'm going to use the free hit, so I'm happy to keep Luke Shaw and bench him even in Game Week 31 should he miss out as well. And that fixture is obviously really encouraging. One of my two transfers could be Nathan Ake in, facing Leicester at home, who have just appointed Dean Smith. He's lost all 6 of his games against Manchester City, and I expect Man City to make that 7 out of 7 with a very comprehensive win and probably a clean sheet on top of that. And whilst Man City blank in Game Week 32 and face Arsenal in Game Week 33, in the long term, Man City have great fixtures. They're probably the most informed team in the world right now, especially after their 3-0 demolition of Bayern Munich. So I'm very optimistic about getting Nathan Ake in, despite all the murmurings of Pep Roulette and possible rotation in the future. I'm quite happy to bolster my defence this way, and it'd be Nathan Ake coming in for Ben Chilwell, and this would be my way of funding another move up front. And the final defender, and one that you wouldn't be surprised by, is Kieran Trippier away to Villa. I'm probably not expecting a clean sheet here for Newcastle. Despite their form, Aston Villa are also in tremendous form of their own, and that could be a high-scoring game, or at least both teams will score, and I'm not expecting too many points there from Kieran Trippier, but the same can be said about Ben Mee against Wolves away, and also Sven Botman, who is even worse than Trippier in general. So for me, I'm also quite open to starting Ben Mee, and he probably will come in if Luke Shaw misses out, but apart from that, this will most likely be my back three heading into Game Week 31. Whilst the update on Luke Shaw was promising, the same can't be said about Marcus Rashford, and because of that, I'm going to start Solly March away to Chelsea. He did extremely well in Game Week 30 whilst on my bench, and I'm hoping that while starting, he can also produce a decent return against a very inconsistent and poor Chelsea side. So the latest on Marcus Rashford is that he's going to miss the next few games, which obviously includes all competitions. So I would expect him to miss out against Sevilla, of course, on Thursday, then probably in Game Week 31, and then probably return for the FA Cup semi-finals, which take place around Game Week 32. So I'm very optimistic that Rashford will be available for Game Week 33, where Man United could cement their top 4 status against Tottenham away in that huge game. So I'd be very optimistic about Rashford. If you don't have the free hit, then he's probably a sell. But for those of you with the free in your back pocket, I think it's probably just a keep in all of those scenarios. Now, Bruno Fernandes is also a keep. I know there's going to be some murmurings about selling him. Don't do it right now when Casemiro is coming back and when Eriksen could start games very soon for Manchester United. That only spells good news for Bruno Fernandes, who has some very good fixtures as well. He does blank in Game Week 32, so unless you don't have a free hit, just keep Bruno Fernandes, and I think the returns will come very soon. And the same goes for Bukayo Saka, another frustrating player for me in recent weeks, and I think Arsenal will bounce back after capitulating that 2-0 lead against Liverpool. West Ham away is a good fixture. I know West Ham will be fighting for their lives and they just won 1-0 away to Fulham, but Arsenal, the league leaders, should still be able to have enough to overwhelm West Ham and do enough to secure all 3 points. And the last midfielder is Matoma away to Chelsea. So I've got that double up in Brighton midfield. The other midfielder, of course, is Marcus Rashford, who's on my bench. So I think this speaks for itself, really. I could even make a case for starting Ben Mee over March if Luke Shaw is also fit. But I think I'm going to go for a 3-4-3 formation in this case. And it also includes one of my new signings up front. I could have sold Harry Kane to get Erling Haaland last week for free, but I didn't want to sell Mr. Consistent, and he's facing Bournemouth at home now, where I'm very optimistic about a return there. Maybe even a brace or hat-trick. I couldn't rule that out. Despite Spurs' struggles, they still have a very good home record. They've won all 5 of the last Premier League games at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and I expect them to make it 6 once again after beating Bournemouth at home, who have been pretty decent actually in recent weeks. They gave Arsenal some trouble. They beat Liverpool. They also beat Leicester away, and they could even score a goal or 2 against Spurs, but I still think Kane has enough to do the goods and produce another big haul, probably between 6 and 9. That's what he typically gets, but I wouldn't be surprised if he produced one of his double-digit returns in Game Week 31. And then the new signing, I have to get him in. It's Erling Haaland. He's probably the best captain option this week against Leicester. He scored and assisted against Bayern Munich. He scored 5 against Leipzig not so long ago, scored a hat-trick against Burnley. He just scores goals whenever he starts. A brace against Southampton. I think he's going to score probably 2 or 3 against Leicester here. and I'm just not going to risk going without him for another week. And because I've got the free hit in my back pocket to use in 32, I have no issues with buying him back whatsoever, and Nathan Ake would come in for Chilwell to facilitate that. And the final forward is Ollie Watkins at home to Newcastle, so a bit of a clash with Kieran Trippier. And this team still looks very solid overall, but once again, if Luke Shaw misses out, it probably will be Ben Mee coming in for him. So let's now discuss the bench, the captaincy, before going into my rough plans for Game Weeks 32 and 33. The bench would be as follows. Kepa Arrizabalaga would be in goal there. Ben Mee, Botman and Rashford would complete the bench. Ben Mee is the most likely to come in should Luke Shaw miss out, or if I decide to go to a back four, and it would be Solly March making way. So now it's just about the captaincy, and there are two names that stand out: Erling Haaland and Harry Kane, and I'd probably go for Erling Haaland simply because he's facing Leicester at home, who've been one of the worst teams all season. They have a very good chance of going down at this moment in time, and yes, there could be let's say a managerial bounce with Dean Smith, but I highly doubt it. I still think Man City will completely overwhelm them, probably win 4 or 5-0, and I think Haaland's ceiling is generally much higher than Harry Kane, despite the fact that he faces Bournemouth as well. I would love to captain a differential like Harry Kane at home to Bournemouth, but because I think Haaland will outscore him, there's no reason for me to just go against that for the sake of being different. So that's my captaincy thoughts, my 2 free transfers, which includes 2 Man City players. Let's see if Pep Roulette strikes again, and maybe that'll be a blessing in disguise as well in terms of the Premier League table and that front. But let's now go into FPL.team and show you my plans for the next few game weeks. In Game Week 32, I'll be using my free hit, and as we get closer to that deadline, I'll be uploading a best free hit team video, and we can also discuss in the comment section maybe some areas of improvement on that front. But for Game Week 33, remember, after using the free hit, you only get 1 free transfer, no matter if you roll the transfer in the week before you activate the free hit, or if you make transfers before activating that chip in a certain week. So with the 1 free transfer in Game Week 33, I probably will get Estupinian in for Ben Mee, and that'd be my only transfer. And if Marcus Rashford is still out, then he would be on the bench and Bukayo Saka would come in. But if everyone else is fit, then I think this would be my starting 11 in Game Week 33. It'd be a 3-4-3 once again. Kepa would be starting over Raya, although that's definitely up in the air because Brentford are the better team so far this season. And once again, it just really comes down to, is Rashford fit in time for Game Week 33? If he's not, Saka comes in, and the captaincy will probably be on someone like Erling Haaland as usual. In Game Week 32, like I said, we'll talk about the best free hit team once we approach that deadline. Let me know your plans for blank Game Week 32, double Game Week 34, and all the game weeks in between and afterwards, because every single game week is just as important as the other. I did extremely well in a double game week in 29, then did extremely poorly in Game Week 30, and I undid all of the gains that I made literally just in a matter of 1 week. So things can change very quickly in FPL, and it's important to be switched on for every single game week and every single eventuality and possibility. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Let's try to get this video to over 300 likes. Let's keep on pushing towards 20,000 subscribers and beyond. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check the links in the description below for the Patreon, channel memberships, Discord server, and the FPL League. And I also highly recommend you check out ExpressVPN, and you can get 3 months for free, and you have nothing to lose at this point, and you can gain so much from that link. I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 31 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.